Hey, I'm Clara. You ever built a home with your bare hands just to be told you don't belong in it? My daughter-in-law called me useless, right in front of my son, and then took everything my wife and I worked for. They laughed while I packed my memories into boxes. But when I walked into that courtroom, and she saw what I brought with me, her smile disappeared real quick. You ever seen guilt turn a face pale? I showed up with that sweet potato pie in hand, wearing my Sunday best, not for church, those days had passed, but for something that used to feel sacred, family dinner. I ironed my shirt that morning like Mama taught me, edges crisp, collar neat. That pie? Made it from scratch, same way my wife used to. Took me hours. But I was proud. When I stepped through the door, ain't nobody looked up. Not really. My grandson Marcus ran up for a quick hug, and I held on a second longer than I should have. Everyone else, buried in their phones, in the kitchen, in conversations I wasn't invited to. Zaria, my daughter-in-law, had some jazz music playing, real modern, like something from a car commercial. The house was shiny, spotless, like a page out of one of them decorating magazines. But it didn't feel like home, not my home. I put the pie down on the counter and stood there for a beat, waiting. Nothing. No. Good to see you, Dad. No. Thanks for coming. Just the clatter of silverware and the hum of disinterest. I found a seat in the corner, quiet, watched the family float past me like I was a fixture. Something you forget's even there. I crossed my legs, folded my hands, and tried not to let the silence swallow me whole. Zaria passed me a bowl of greens later on and said, "Here you go, Mr. Retired. Don't drop it now." Chuckled like it was cute. Deshaun, my own son, snorted, looked at me, then away. No defense, not even a, "Come on, babe, that's too much." Just that guilty smirk, like he didn't want to choose sides. Later, one of Zaria's cousins leaned over and said, "Y'all really should just hire someone for them porch repairs. Old folks like you ain't built for ladders no more." Said it like a compliment. I nodded, smiled the way you do when you're bleeding inside. And then Marcus, bless his little heart, looked up at me with them big brown eyes and asked, "Grandpa, why don't you work anymore?" That hit different. The room got quiet. Forks froze midair. Zaria sipped her wine. Deshaun cleared his throat. I looked at that boy, my boy's boy, and felt everything inside me crack. Zaria wasn't done, though. She always had to get the last word. "He can't even change a light bulb without supervision," she said loud, like she was on stage. Some folks chuckled. A couple glanced at me and quickly looked away. Deshaun didn't say a damn word. I stayed still, face calm. Inside, I was boiling. I remembered the summer I made Deshaun help me fix the roof. He was 10. Rain poured down and we were barefoot, but we did it. He learned with me, sweat, grit, blood. Now he laughed while they mocked me in his house. "I'm feeling a little tired," I said, setting my napkin down. "Think I'll head home." Zaria didn't stop me. Deshaun barely looked up. Marcus waved, but even that felt like a goodbye I didn't ask for. Back home, I walked into my living room and stopped cold. Something was missing. My community service trophy, 40 years ago, I helped build the first rec center on our block, gone from the mantle, in its place. A digital photo frame, flashing through pictures of Zaria, Deshaun, and Marcus on vacation. Beaches, smiles, perfect lighting. I found my trophy in a storage box under the hallway table. Didn't say nothing. Didn't curse or shout, just stood there, holding it. Cold brass, heavy, like it didn't belong anymore. They were rewriting the walls of my own house. I looked around, furniture rearranged, curtains changed, my old records boxed and labeled "Donate." "They want me out, quiet and forgotten," I whispered to the empty room. I stepped out to the porch, sat in the same spot I always had. The neighborhood had changed. New faces, new cars. The corner store was now a yoga studio. I missed the old barber who used to wave every Sunday. My wife once told me, "Respect isn't given, it's remembered." She was right. And right now, all I had left were memories. That night, I sat down with a notebook, flipped to the first page, wrote the date. Then I wrote, slow and careful, "If they want to erase me, I'll leave behind something they can't delete." Morning sunlight crept through the blinds, casting long stripes across the old hardwood floor. I'd been awake for hours. Sleep didn't come easy after that dinner. My thoughts kept circling back to the way Zaria looked at me, like I was in the way, like I'd overstayed my welcome in a life I helped build. I got up slow, bones creaking like the old porch steps I used to patch. Walked past the shelf of photos. My wedding day, Deshaun on his first bike, the house before it had central air. Everything on that wall had my sweat in it, my name, my story. But now the silence in this house didn't feel peaceful. It felt like something was closing in. The ticking of the clock on the wall stabbed at me with every second. Time. It wasn't just moving, it was reminding me of all the years I'd spent holding this family together with both hands. Now them same hands felt useless. I stood in the kitchen, poured myself some coffee in that old chipped mug, same one my wife used every Sunday morning. I held it close, let the steam hit my face like warmth I didn't deserve. I could still hear my mama's voice from back when I was 10. Respect ain't free, son. You buy it with your backbone. I paid full price. But these days, folks was asking for receipts. A knock at the door pulled me out of my thoughts. I opened it to find a young man in a brown uniform holding a flat envelope. Delivery for Mr. Clara, he said, handing me a clipboard. I signed, thanked him, and shut the door. The envelope felt official. Too clean, too heavy. I sat down, sliced it open with a butter knife, and pulled out the papers. It was from a law office downtown. I scanned the words, squinting until the truth punched me in the gut. The house deed had been changed. My name, gone. In its place, Deshaun, Zaria. The paper was dated months ago, months. And no one said a word. I stared at it, my hand trembling. Brick by brick, I built that house. Hammer in one hand, baby monitor in the other. Poured the foundation with my brother. Painted every wall with my wife. Now it wasn't mine, not on paper, not in memory, just like that. They took my name off my own legacy, I whispered. Not out loud, not for anyone else, just for me. I had to breathe, had to move. Sitting still felt like drowning. So I grabbed my keys, got in my car, and headed to the old park a few blocks away, the one with the wooden bench facing the pond. Me and my wife used to come here Sundays after church, share a sandwich, and talk about the future. Felt safe there. I sat down, letting the breeze hit my face. Leaves rustled overhead. Ducks drifted across the water like they had nowhere better to be. I closed my eyes and remembered. Deshaun, a few months back, telling me, "Don't worry about the papers, Dad. I got it handled." I'd trusted him. I let it go like a fool. Now I knew. He knew. He'd known the whole time. My chest tightened. But I didn't cry. I'd cried enough for one lifetime. "Sometimes family don't steal your things," a voice said beside me. I turned to see Mr. Leroy, an old friend from the neighborhood, settling in on the bench. "They steal your peace," he finished. I nodded, staring out at the pond. "And they do it smiling," I said, voice low. Evening came slow. The sky turned burnt orange, then purple. I didn't want to go home, but I did. Stopped by the diner first, the one on the corner. Same place my wife and I used to split a piece of sweet potato pie and argue over who made the best greens. The waitress, Tina, brought me coffee before I even asked. "You doing okay, Mr. Clara?" she asked gently. I shrugged. As okay as a man can be when the world shifts under his feet. She hesitated, glanced around, then leaned in. "I probably shouldn't say this, but I heard Zaria in here the other night. Bragging about how the house was finally ours now. Said it loud like she wanted folks to hear." I didn't flinch, just nodded. "Thank you," I said, sliding a 20 under my cup before leaving. It was a $5 coffee. I didn't care. Walking to my car, I spotted Deshaun's SUV parked in my driveway. Lights on inside. Nobody home. I didn't go in, just stood on the sidewalk, watching. Somewhere deep down, I knew I couldn't stay quiet forever. That night, I sat on the porch with my journal in my lap, flipped past the first page from 2 nights ago, grabbed my pen, and wrote, "They've taken my house, my pride, and my peace, but they'll never take my truth." I reached for my wife's old Bible, the one with her handwriting in the margins, opened it to one of her favorite verses, "The truth shall set you free," closed it gently, stared out into the dark. If truth is all I've got left, I said to the night, then that's the weapon I'll learn to use. I rocked back and forth on the porch, the wooden slats creaking under me as dusk slipped in. The cicadas sang their summer hymn. Cars passed quietly down the street. The breeze tasted of grass and late light. I held a faded photograph, me, Deshawn, and my late wife, years back before fault lines cracked open our bonds. I whispered a prayer, careful, as though speaking too loudly would break something. Lord, grant me clarity tonight. When someone knocked, soft but sharp, it startled me. The quiet cracked. A neighbor's child stood there, holding a sealed white envelope. No return address. My pulse sped. I reached for it with hands that trembled more than I'd admit. Inside was a letter from Doc Ledbetter, an old friend who once trusted me with his secrets. He thanked me for helping him when times were hard. One line hit me like a blow. You deserve to see your name honored. He pledged he never forgot who built that home. He reminded me of nights I fixed roofs, patched siding, made things right, not for glory, but because it was needed. Tears stung my eyes, a voice from the past validating me, when no one in the present would. But that same letter warned someone rifled through the envelope before it reached me. My heart thrummed. Someone was digging for my story, trying to twist it before I could tell it. Later, I heard laughter, childlike, from the yard. I walked behind the house under dim porch light and found Nia playing alone, swinging her legs, softly humming. I remembered teaching her to walk in that yard, how I held her hand steady while she wobbled, how her giggles filled my arms with pride. Now she was alone, distant. She looked up, smiled. But she didn't stay. I watched her walk away, my insides twisted. If my own granddaughter thought I was a ghost, where did that leave me? I thought, stand up now, don't wait too long. But fear whispered, if I expose her lies, will I lose her too? That evening, Naya visited my room quietly. Her small hand landed on my shoulder. She said, Grandpa, I heard her say you don't matter, but I do. One phrase, one quiet soul reaching in. I knelt and laid my hand over hers. We sat in silence. My throat stung, but I held my composure. She slipped away in the dark. Her shadow crossed the hallway. The house felt heavier without her presence. I closed the door behind her, bowed my head. I turned back to my journal, placed Doc's letter inside. I wrote snippets, names, dates, linking past and present. Then I flipped to a blank page. I sketched the confrontation I would make at the courthouse, imagined the envelope I would drop at Zaria's feet. I saw her face, pale, speechless. My fingers trembled, not from fear, but purpose. If tonight I could walk into that courtroom, show that letter and everything behind it, maybe someone would see me again. The text came early that morning. From Zaria, clear, polished, almost like it was copied from a company memo. Family meeting tonight. Important updates. Please confirm attendance. I stared at it longer than I should have. No warmth, no dad, no hope to see you. Just a command dressed up as courtesy. I responded with a simple, okay. Didn't know what I was walking into, but I knew better than to ignore it. By the time I arrived that evening, the living room was already arranged like a showroom. White leather couches, glass table in the middle, cold LED lights humming above. Nothing familiar, no old family pictures, just clean lines and curated smiles. Zaria greeted me with that smooth kind of voice, polite but pointed. Glad you could make it. Taven gave a quick nod, wouldn't meet my eye. I stood there with my coat still on, feeling like a visitor in a house I helped build. Folks started coming in, cousins, in-laws, neighbors from church. She called it a family meeting, but the room looked like a boardroom gathering. Then she stood, cleared her throat. Before we begin, this discussion is for core family only, those actively involved in household decisions. I froze. She motioned to the chair I was about to sit in, and someone came, picked it up, moved it to the back of the room. I was left standing, in front of everyone. Then someone whispered, "Here, sir," and pointed to a single folding chair, far from the circle. I sat there, like some retired janitor accidentally called into a shareholders' meeting. Zaria kept talking, smiling, talking about upgrades to the house, modernizing legacy, whatever that meant. said Tavon had come into some money through a new venture, and they were investing in long-term stability for the home. She pulled out a folder with plans, renovation layouts, contractor quotes, room redesigns. She called the house ours 4 times. Not once did she mention me. Then she passed the folder around. Everyone nodded, some even clapped. I didn't. I raised my hand. May I see the original ownership papers? Silence. Zaria paused mid-sentence, looked at me like I'd spit on the carpet. Tavon stared at the floor. I stood up. I said, I'd like to see the documents, if we're making decisions on something that used to be mine. She gave that smile again. Cool. Calculated. Dad, this meeting is more of a courtesy. The paperwork's been settled for months. Without me? She didn't answer, just turned back to the group. That's when the unexpected happened. Delante, the lawyer she'd brought, stood up slowly, packed his briefcase, adjusted his tie. He said calmly, I'm withdrawing from representation effective immediately. Zaria turned white. He nodded toward me, respectful. Mr. Carter. And he walked out. Just like that. No explanation. No excuse. The room shifted. Conversations turned into murmurs. Tavon rubbed his neck. Zaria sat down, blinking fast like she was recalculating. I stayed standing, watched her carefully. She didn't speak again. No one asked me to leave, but no one asked me to stay either. So I turned and walked out. The streets outside were quiet, lights buzzed on porches, wind picked up loose wrappers along the curb. I walked past our old mailbox, the one I installed, still dented on the side, still standing. As I passed the front steps, I paused, glanced at the new window trims, clean, expensive, replacing the ones I'd hand-sanded. Her voice echoed in my head. Out with the old. I reached into my coat and pulled out a small brass key. Old, tarnished. She didn't know I kept it. I gripped it tight, held it like a vow. I whispered into the wind. You think you've won, but tonight, the mask cracks. I showed up early at the courthouse. The same steps I once climbed for my son's high school ceremony now felt like the front lines of a quiet war. I wore my navy blue suit, the one I'd ironed myself for Deshawn's graduation day. That day, I remember him calling me his rock. Now, I wasn't sure I'd even be called his father by the end of this. The cold in that lobby didn't come from the AC. It came from the glances, the silence, the air that thickened when Zaria walked in. She looked polished, rehearsed, like this was her stage. Her lawyer didn't even glance my way, but a young court intern, no older than my grandson, gave me a nod. I recognized her. I'd fixed her uncle's roof after a storm knocked it loose, no charge. That nod, that tiny gesture, reminded me I still had weight in this world. Time to break the silence, I whispered to myself, walking through those double doors. I was about to take my seat when Evelyn, an old friend from church and a key witness, pulled me aside. Her hands trembled as she spoke. Someone came by, from their side, offered me money not to testify. My stomach turned. Are you scared? I asked. She nodded, eyes wet. I looked her square in the face, same way I looked at Deshawn when he tried to lie about skipping school years ago. Tell the truth, no matter what it costs. That's all you owe anybody. She walked into that courtroom like a storm in a small frame. When the judge asked if anyone wanted to address preliminary concerns, Evelyn raised her hand. Her voice shook, but it didn't break. I was approached, offered money not to speak here today, from her side. She pointed, gently but clearly, toward Zaria's table. The room froze. A low buzz rippled through the benches. Zaria's lawyer shifted in his chair, eyes darting. The judge's tone turned steel cold. We will open an inquiry into possible witness tampering. I didn't need fireworks. That moment was enough. When my turn came, I pulled out 2 envelopes. One was a scanned copy from Pastor Ellis, showing the original deed to the house with my name. Signed, notarized, clean. The other was a video, grainy but clear, showing me on the day we broke ground on the house. Zaria's lawyer presented another version of the deed. Crisp, color-printed, stamped. But when the clerk reviewed both, her brow furrowed. These signatures, she said, they don't match the notary logbook. Now the room buzzed again, louder. Zaria's lawyer tried to wave it off. Must be a clerical oversight, Your Honor. But the judge wasn't buying it. We'll pause this hearing for 24 hours. Both documents will be sent for forensic analysis. I won't proceed on shaky ground. I stepped outside that courthouse without a smile, but with fire in my gut. This wasn't over. But the tide had shifted. That evening, the sun barely touched the horizon when Deshaun walked through my front door. No knock. Just like old times when he used to come over to fix things. A leaking pipe, a blown fuse, or just his own mood after a hard day. He stood there quiet, then said, "Dad, I didn't know she went that far." I motioned him to the table, laid both deeds out. One real, one fiction. "You didn't want to know," I said calmly. "You saw her change things. You saw how she talked to me. You said nothing." He didn't argue, just stared. And that silence was louder than any defense. As he stood to leave, I thought that might be the end of it for the night. But then Zaria showed up. She walked right up the steps like she owned them. Her heels hit the porch like a metronome counting down to the next insult. "You're making a mistake," she said, smooth as silk. "You're too old to fight this hard." I stepped forward, leveled my gaze right at her. "You should have never mistaken my silence for weakness." Her face stiffened. She turned to leave, but tossed one more jab over her shoulder. "Tomorrow, your son might not back you in court." I didn't blink. I just closed the door behind her. Let her try. I sat in the gallery, heart hammering. The bench under me felt cold. Zaria's lawyer across the aisle gave me a smirk, like he already expected me to trip. The judge glanced between us, pensively. My folder of evidence was tight in my lap, weight pressing against me. I rose slowly when my name was called. Every step was heavy, years of silence dragging behind me. I cleared my throat. "Your Honor, I submit Exhibit 12. The screen flickered to life. I plugged in my flash drive. The video played. Zaria sitting at the desk, signing over property changes, names replaced, dates altered. My breath hitched. But then it paused, then glitched, then parts vanished. The edited section, the core proof, was blank. The room shifted. Zaria's lawyer jumped up, claiming technical errors, arguing the portion was invalid. My chest pounded. Someone tampered with it. I glanced at the judge, eyes now sharp, leaning forward, waiting. Outside the courtroom, I cornered Delante. His face looked troubled. He whispered, "They replaced your version, but I have the backup. Go Chambers. Demand both versions be audited." My blood raced. I felt hope crack through anger. We entered Chambers together. I demanded the court analyze both files side by side. The judge nodded, ordered a 12-hour forensic review. Court in recess. That evening, I drove home with the backup file burning in my briefcase. When I arrived, the front door was locked. No lights. I knocked. No answer. I circled the side. Locked. Windows dark. I peered through a pane. There she was. Zaria, packing away my trophies. Pictures gone. Shelves half empty. My heart froze. They were erasing me physically now. I stepped away quietly, not wanting to give her the satisfaction of seeing me crumble. Rain started to mist the streetlights. I walked, journal in hand, clouds pressing overhead. I thought, they want me out. Let's see how they'll push me further. I sat under a street lamp, flipped to the blank page I'd reserved for plans. I listed names, timelines, witnesses, evidence. I vowed, tomorrow I bring that back up to court. I will expose the fraud. I whispered to myself in the dark. This ends now. I stepped into that courtroom before the sun had a chance to warm the city. The same courtroom I'd been walking into for weeks now. But this time, I wasn't coming in as some forgotten man begging to be heard. I walked in holding truth, real truth, the kind that don't shake when lies get loud. Whispers followed me like shadows. "That's him," I heard. He showed up again. I didn't look left or right, just forward. Zaria came in next. Sharp suit, hair perfect, but her walk had hesitation. She felt it too, the shift. The envelope Delante handed me the night before was warm in my palm, like it had been waiting years to breathe. The judge didn't waste time. "Step forward," he said. I opened the envelope, held it up like it weighed everything it truly did, and laid the original deed on the bench. The courtroom held its breath. The clerk examined it, held it up to the light, pulled out the version Zaria submitted 2 hearings ago. Side by side, the difference was louder than any gavel. Mine had my wife's signature, ink worn but still proud. The one Zaria filed, wrong ink, smeared dates. My name scratched out like history could be deleted. Murmurs broke out. Zaria stared straight ahead like none of it was real. Her lawyer mumbled something about clerical errors, but nobody bought it. The judge leaned in, sharp and cold. This will undergo full document verification, but on face value, this speaks volumes. My fingers curled at my side, not from tension, but release. Not victory, not yet. But something shifted, and everybody in that room felt it. An hour passed before the judge returned with a ruling. Until final judgment, the property deed will revert to its last confirmed and legal state. He looked right at Zaria, which includes Mr. Langston's full rights. You are ordered to vacate any claim beyond that, effective immediately. Zaria didn't blink, didn't cry. She just sat frozen. Her hands folded tight like she was trying to keep it together. Deshawn, in the back row, stood. Our eyes met for a moment. He nodded, no words. It was quiet, but it meant everything. The courtroom emptied slowly. I stayed back, letting the room clear before I moved. Truth don't need to rush. When I walked into the house that afternoon, the first thing I noticed was the hallway. Cleared out. Family portraits gone. Couch pulled halfway to the door. A suitcase stood near the front, like someone was halfway through a decision. Zaria stood near the dining table. Her arms crossed, her back straight. "You think you've won?" she said. "You think this ends here?" I laid the now unsealed envelope gently on the table, like setting down weight I'd carried too long. "I didn't win anything," I said. "I just brought back what was stolen." She didn't say another word, just grabbed the suitcase and walked past me without so much as a look. Tavin stood behind her near the hallway, quiet. He didn't follow. He just watched her leave, then looked down at his feet. That night, the house was still. No footsteps, no voices bouncing off the walls, just the creaks of floorboards remembering what used to be. I stepped outside before midnight. The air was crisp, sky clear. City lights stretched far beyond the porch. I exhaled slowly. Not relief, not yet. But something steadier, something like peace. I sat on the porch swing, my knees stiff, but my spirit calm. They tried to erase me, but history remembers. They bowed, I whispered to the dark. Because I stood, sunlight slid across the floorboards like a blessing. Not loud, not grand, just quiet peace creeping in through the blinds. I sat on the edge of my bed, letting it warm my knees. For the first time in what felt like forever, the house didn't feel like it was holding its breath. Zaria had moved out, not a word left behind, just an absence you could feel in the walls. Deshawn showed up that morning with breakfast. Nothing fancy, just eggs, toast, and some weak coffee. But he made it himself. Sat it on the table like it was more than food, like it was a bridge. We ate in silence. No music, no news, just forks on ceramic and the sound of healing. After a few bites, he looked up and said, "You were right all along, Pop." I didn't gloat. No raised eyebrows, just nodded once. Truth don't need loud applause. It stands on its own. Around noon, I went through the mail. Usual stack of bills, church flyers, an envelope with no return address. Handwritten. I knew that script. Zaria. Inside was a short note, just 2 lines. "This is done. I'm out." Attached to it, the legal deed transfer form. Signed, stamped. She was giving it up. No apology, not a single word of sorry. But it didn't matter. That paper said more than she ever could. It meant she was done fighting. Or maybe she just knew she couldn't win anymore. I stood still for a long minute, the letter in my hand. Then I folded it, placed it in the drawer beside the original deed. That drawer felt like a vault now, a chapter sealed. No need to linger in it. That afternoon, I pulled out my brown church coat. The one with the worn cuffs and loose thread under the collar. Drove down to 55th Street. The little church where my mama once sang like she was trying to reach heaven before her last breath. The place was full. Familiar faces, some new ones. Reverend Jacobs gave me a look that didn't need words. He knew. The choir lifted up, his eye is on the sparrow. My chest tightened. Not from sorrow, but from memory, from grace. Ms. Loretta squeezed my hand from the next pew over. You look like a man who walked through fire and came out gold, she whispered. I chuckled softly. I'm just trying to keep the gold from rustin'. After the service, I lit a candle. One for my wife, one for peace, one for whatever comes next. Folks didn't judge. They didn't crowd me either. Just nodded, patted my back, let me be. By evening, I was back home. The street was quiet. I eased down onto the porch swing, the wood creaking beneath me. The sun was tucking itself behind the rooftops. Tavon stepped outside with his guitar. No words, just sat beside me and strummed low. Something slow, something that felt like home. I told him about the day his daddy, Deshaun, was born, how I held him and didn't know what I was doing. I was terrified, I said. Didn't think I'd be enough. He kept strumming, eyes forward. You ever feel that? I asked. All the time, he said, but it makes more sense now. Everything you did. I nodded. Real strength ain't in fists, Tavon. It's in what you stand for when standing ain't easy. He looked over. I get it now, Grandpa. I do. I smiled, hand resting on his shoulder. Then I did my job. We sat there. No more to prove. And just as I closed my eyes, a knock came at the door. I wasn't expecting nobody.